Hi, it's Mark and welcome back to No Book Left Behind, and today I'll be going through my TBR for December 2025. Hi, it's Mark and welcome back to No Book Left Behind, and welcome to my December TBR video. Now, if you've already watched my November reading roundup, you'll know I did pretty well at finishing my TBR for that month. Well, not finishing it exactly, but getting most of it read. I read 7 out of 10 titles, and I was quite pleased with that. And I'm hoping for a similar result this month, of course, but we've got Christmas, so there might be some reading of Christmas presents involved, which might knock the total down a bit, but we'll have to see how that goes, obviously. But anyway, I've got 10 titles to show you, and let's start with this one. Tales of the Weird from the British Library is a series I'm falling in love with, and this is volume 5. And this is Spirits of the Season, Christmas Hauntings. So this is the one book you can guarantee I am going to read this month, because I want to do a video on it. I want to post a video around Christmas time of me reviewing volumes 4, 5 and 6 from this series. So as I say, that one's pretty much a lock. I'm going to be doing that one. I'm looking forward to it. After that, we've got a whole different range of oddities, which is typical for this channel if you're not used to it. It covering very different types of genres that just happen to interest me. And that's something you don't want to do if you're a writer, by the way. A little bit of advice here. Don't switch genres all the time with your work, because you don't get ahead that way. I can tell you that from personal experience. Anyway, the second book on the list this month is Bud Schulberg's The Harder They Fall. And this was turned into a movie in 1956 with Humphrey Bogart, which did happen to be, sadly, his final performance. And in case you can't guess, it's about boxing. And specifically about a very huge, muscle-bound fighter. In the movie, he was from Argentina. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same in the book, but basically, underworld figures manipulate the sport in order for him to get a crack at the world title, even though he's not really very good. And I think this was based on the story of Primo Carnera, a real-life boxer, although I don't know how closely, and I think Carnera did end up winning the world title, maybe. Sorry, my knowledge of boxing is not great. I'm not a huge fan of it. But yes, this is the original novel, and I'm looking forward to reading it. It's, as I say, it's a bit of a miscellaneous hodgepodge of kind of fiction, really, which kind of sums up my taste, really. Obviously, I've got into this simply because of the Bogart connection is how I got to this book. But I'm looking forward to reading it anyway, because I did enjoy the movie. Third up is another in the Easy Roll-In series by Walter Mosley. Charcoal Joe. Let's get it right. If you've watched previous videos, you'll know I recently finished Rose Gold from the series and really enjoyed that. And this is the next one. And I think after this there's a couple more that he's published, because I am a little bit behind. Not as behind as I am with some other series, like the Lincoln Rhyme series by Jeffrey Deaver. I'm way behind with that. I've really got to start including those in these TBRs, because I've got the books. They're back there somewhere. Yeah, I really do need to get onto those. But yeah, I enjoy the Easy Rollins book, so yeah, another one I'm looking forward to. Next up is something like, well, kind of different. Well, I don't know, really. That's the point. David Goodis is one of my favourite noir authors. I think he's massively underrated and sadly mostly forgotten, although I think his books always remained in print in France throughout the years, and I think they're starting to become a bit more easily available in this country after all this time, because he's been gone 50 years, I think. This one, however, is a little different, because although this is published by my friends, and I say that not that I have any personal connection or know them, but I think of them as my friends because they publish so many books that I like. Starkhouse Press. They've been doing a whole series of noir books which were adapted into movies, and some books that I've been looking to read for a long time but never been able to afford because they were never republished. All you could get was massively expensive copies on the internet and original copies, from the 1940s and 50s. Well, this is similar in that sense, because Retreat from Oblivion by David Goodis is actually one that has not been in print since, I believe, its very first printing. And the only copy I ever found of it that was available before Starkhouse Press got hold of it retailed for around $1,000. So, yeah, slightly out of my price range, that one. Now, it's different from those other Starkhouse Press books I mentioned because this was not turned into a movie. And as far as I know, this is not particularly a noir novel. It's Goodis's first work. And so therefore it's something apparently a little bit different. I don't know anything about the plot. I just know that it's not really noir, but I still want to read it because I love Goodis and I love his writing. So it was a no-brainer when Starkhouse Press put it out again for a reasonable price. Next up, we have got a definite movie connection with this. This is the Hammer horror film Omnibus. Now there are 2 volumes of these available. Yeah, 2. Yeah, that is right, 2. Sadly, only 2. Containing 4 novels each, which is not the whole output that the studio produced back in the day. They seem to pick their novelisations almost at random. Some movies were novelised and some weren't, and there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of rhyme or reason about which ones were chosen. However, 8 of them were put into 2 anthologies. This is the first anthology. I'm going to be reading one of the books out of this. In fact, most probably The Curse of Frankenstein, which is interesting because obviously there was an original novel for Frankenstein, clearly. So yeah, they decided they put out their own version of the screenplay as a book, which is an interesting choice. They didn't do that with Dracula. Well, I don't know why they didn't. As I say, the decisions they made about what was novelised and what wasn't, who knows? I don't really understand the logic of some of it when you look at the titles. But anyway, yeah, The Curse of Frankenstein is the one I'm going to be reading, which is going to be entail me watching the movie again, and I haven't seen that for many, many years. So looking forward to that experience as well as reading the book. Now, next up is the holdover from last month, because there always is one. I think I've decided this is going to be my policy with my TBRs. If there are some that I don't read one month, I'm going to hold one over to the next month. But I'm not just going to hold them all over because that would just be boring. I'll be talking about the same books all the time. And this is a kind of a double holdover because Vampires of the Andes was actually part of my Halloween 48-hour reading marathon, rather. And then the one book I never got round to. So it went on my TBR last month and I didn't get round to it again, which is a shame because I'm really looking forward to this. And especially when I read the blurb, because it does seem a bit... Well, it's Lost World literature and it does seem a bit bizarre. It says here, working in Peru from archaeological site to archaeological site, astute archaeologist Will Wotton was certain he would discover something that would astonish the world. It would be this very notion and mysterious suggestion that would lead him to the ruins of Chan Chan. Within the tomb on the outskirts of that great ancient city, Wotton would make the greatest discovery and biggest blunder of his life. Within that forgotten tomb, Wotton would discover a strange stone table with inscriptions from a myriad of arcane languages, some completely unknown. This table, unbeknownst to Wotton, was not a long-lost relic of a forgotten empire, but a critical piece to an ancient prophecy. And as fate would have it, the prophecy would hold him and everything he loved in its clutches. Yeah, and this has got vampires in it and robots, apparently. At least that's what I've read somewhere. So, hopefully this does sound really, really interesting. So, next up, after that batch, the second batch of books, well, let's start with... no, not that one. Let's start with a biography. Because this is a biography of the actress Audrey Hepburn by Alexander Walker, rather. I think I just changed his gender there, didn't I? Okay. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I'm a Hepburn fan, so it will be interesting to read about her life, especially because I've already read this book, Audrey Hepburn and World War II Dutch Girl. And this is going to be appearing, I think, in my top 10 books of the year, because I thought this was absolutely terrific. It's all about her experiences as a teenager during occupied Netherlands in World War II, and I thought it was an outstanding bit of research and biography. I really loved this book, and it told me a lot about being in an occupied country, about World War II, things that I normally wouldn't really pay much attention to. But yeah, I thought this was terrific. So I am very much looking forward to reading about the rest of her life in this book. So next up, we've got an oddity. Well, I don't know really. Is it an oddity? Will it be an oddity? Well, we'll see. Limbo Tower by, what was his name again? William Lindsay Gresham. That's a complete brain fade for a moment there. Now, William Lindsay Gresham wrote one of my favourite ever books. One of the, like a couple of hundred or whatever. It was called Nightmare Alley. It was made into a movie in the 40s with Tyrone Power, which is a great movie. And Guillermo del Toro recently made a remake of it, which I still haven't seen. I still haven't got round to it, which is, I think it's partly because I'm afraid he'll ruin it. Not that I dislike Toro's stuff at all. I think he's a great director, but it's just such a great movie and such a great novel. I'm hopefully he's going to actually be more faithful to the novel in a sense, because there were limitations on what they could get into in the 1940s, because that novel is an incredible piece of work. It's almost like reading someone trying to exercise their own personal demons on the page. It's seriously twisted. I was quite gobsmacked by how dark it is. Now, Gresham only ever wrote one other novel, and this is it. And it's kind of forgotten. It's called Limbo Tower. I think it's about some kind of hospital. I think it might even be a soap opera as such. I really don't know. I've not read much about it because there's not much to read about it. There's not much information out there. And I was actually quite surprised I managed to find a copy of it. So I'm looking forward to reading it, but I'm not sure what I'm going to make of it. So that one I'm very curious about. Next up, we've got one that I really should have read in October, November. I did intend to. I intended to read lots of spooky stuff, and I did read some, as you probably saw in my video of my 48-hour reading marathon. But I didn't read much about witch trials, and I intended to. I really, really did. So, Witchfinders by Malcolm Gaskill even. God, I'm good with names today, aren't I? Is a 17th century English tragedy. And it's basically the story of Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General. Now, I'm originally from a part of the world which is not a million miles away from where Hopkins plied his dubious trade. So I know a little bit about the background about the man and what he did, but not a huge amount. And this looks to be a very comprehensive history / biography which goes into it all. And as I say, I really did mean to get round to some witch trial stuff last month, but just never did. So I really do want to read that one. And that's it for the actual physical books, I believe. Is that all of them? I think I've just been through all of them. If there weren't 9 now, I've missed one. But no, there is one more book to talk about, but I don't actually have a physical copy of that. That's on my Kobo, and that's The Canary Murder Case by S.S. Van Dine. I talked about Van Dine briefly, I think, before, because I read the Benson murder case recently. He's an early 20th century crime author. Philo Vance is his investigator, his main character, who helps the police in a number of confusing murders. I didn't like the Benson murder case very much. I found the Philo Vance character extraordinarily annoying, but I thought, well, I'm going to give it another go. I'll read the Canary murder case next. I'll try the second one. They were all adapted into films, or I think most of them were. There were various Philo Vance films anyway. They kind of all merge into one a bit, because there wasn't one actor who took the role and made it his own. It was played by several different actors, and really they toned down the more extreme aspects of Vance's personality, simply because I think audiences would have disliked him as much as I did. Well, possibly, I don't know, but yeah, they were kind of anonymous movies really, and I think they fairly quickly went into B-movie territory. The Canary murder case was perhaps the most notable film, because it starred Louise Brooks, and I'm a huge Louise Brooks fan, and I actually have a really, really meaty biography of her, which is still on my TBR back there, like the other 200 books, or however many it is. In fact, that's actually my ambition, my writing ambition for 2026, which we'll touch on now, but obviously I'll get into in more depth in the later video. But I do want to get that TBR down. I mean, it is ridiculous to have a couple of hundred books you've bought and haven't read, and I'm no good at stopping myself buying more. I'm very weak at that, very weak. So it never really goes down, and yeah, I really want to tackle that this year. Next year even. So that's it for my TBR for this month. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for sticking with me. I had to do all this without any notes or anything for reasons I won't bore you with. So hopefully I didn't stumble through it too badly. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Please be vague with the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. The YouTube rhythm. No, I'm not going to reshoot it. The YouTube algorithm supports that, or is happy about that, or something. Anyway, remember, keep rooting through those second-hand bookshops and those charity shelves, because there are treasures out there that only you can find. Because I doubt whether I can, or not on this evidence anyway.